Hi, this is James from Zero Authority DAO here today with the ePioneers team, specifically Alana Milks. Really pleasure to be talking with you here today. Hope you're having a good day yourself.
I am, James. Thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always nice getting to chat with people and learn about what they're building and what they're passionate about. So, with all that said, I'd love to get a little bit of your background, your team's background on where you guys kind of come from and the experience that you guys have.
Yes, of course. So maybe I'll start with the story of how ePioneers became first an idea, then a team, and then a startup. But so my background is, I was a professional soccer player for almost 5 years in Colombia, and I earned a scholarship to study in the U.S. And double major in both finance and history. And then did like a 1 year MBA because I had finished the undergrad in like 3 years. And so I had like an extra year for studies and went into finance thinking that at the beginning, this will be kind of it is very challenging as a field. But professionally, I was very focused on extrinsic motivation. And so I wanted to get a job in Wall Street, and I ended up doing that. And so I started working at private equity. And then I moved back to Chicago, which is where I studied, and got into that hedge fund. And I was doing trading of derivatives and, different Asian markets and whatnot. And at some point, after almost like a year of doing this, I came across an event by Acumen, which is like an impact fund that does investments in startups and companies doing work across different industries, but with a focus on not just profits, but also, I guess, like what's called impact returns. And I was super, super curious, and I ended up staying in that event, and I met these guys who started the world's first coding academy. This is like back in 2000, like end of 2014. And I ended up doing the coding program and learn how to code. And to me, that was kind of like a change and a before and after in my career. And so that's how I got into tech. So I first learned web development and then mobile development, building mobile games. And then after a year, I moved back to Colombia and launched an ed tech startup, which was the first in terms of the model implemented into the region. And we trained thousands of people. But during the pandemic, so this is like 2020, kind of going forward few years, with some friends, we went diving because one of my friends was like looking for a job, and the only option she found was creating a scuba dive course for people to learn the PADI kind of license and also learn how to dive because there's no tourism and everything was kind of blocked. And we ended up doing this, and she took us to the north of the country in this area called Tayrona Park in the Caribbean of Colombia. And she took us to all the corals, and they were all bleaching, and meaning they were dying basically. And so to me, that was super shocking. And it was also a before and after because I was doing the ed tech startup, right? And that's when I decided to whatever I want to do with my life to focus it on not just bringing more awareness about the climate impacts that are already perceivable, but providing solutions to protect nature-based ecosystems like corals, like forests, and other types of living ecosystems in the region. And so this is when kind of the ePioneers idea starts. And this is like during the pandemic. And then this year, a lot of my friends are remote workers or digital nomads living in Colombia, and they were stuck in the country because of everything, right? But in particular, they couldn't access basic stuff like bank accounts or having access to health, right? Because in Colombia, there was no legislation for digital nomads at the time. And so we took the kind of challenge to create this new legislation for digital nomads and connected it with discovering natural ecosystems. And that was like the first iteration of ePioneers, which is a climate wallet that lets you unlock experiences and discover kind of climate routes and collect NFTs as you move around and travel around. So this was like the first version that we ended up releasing last year. And that's when we kind of came together as a team with our CTO and co-founder. We've known each other for many years through students that we have trained with IT skills. And so I proposed to him to be a co-founder and help with this new venture. Yeah, for 6 months almost, we built the first version. And then we realized that we needed to focus on communities that were not just on the kind of like layer one side of things, because our layer one is the Algorand, but communities that had bigger international outreach, and also a focus on bringing more functionality to Bitcoin, meaning the cryptocurrency which has the most liquidity, the highest yields, the highest security, also being recognized as a legal tender in many countries. And that's when we realized it made sense to look into other systems, in particular stacks. And also I came across Patrick Stanley and City Coins, and I was super in love with his startup, especially because of civic engagement and the vision he brings, and the execution that he's made so far is super impressive. And so I was super interested in like seeing how we could align with him. And yeah, that's kind of part of what we're working on right now with ePioneer. So it's kind of a second version that's going to be deployed next month, and Bitcoin settle, and also with a multi-chain strategy. But that's kind of a very general overview of background, how this came to be, and ePioneers right now.
Yeah, wow. There's a lot to unpack there. You guys have been exceptionally busy.
Yeah,
You have a lot of history and talent to back up ePioneers. So that's really awesome. One thing that really piqued my interest in what you were talking about was this fact that it seemed like a few digital nomads, you guys came together and to build this out in the first place. And it sounded like you guys actually were able to make a difference in Colombia and with what you did, and that's really exciting to see. And from building something that has to be really feel like a success, that people are already using it on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the keys to this is that we have been building communities for the past 7 years almost. And through our work, so through education programs, through events, we've also helped companies fundraise as kind of mentors, and also, I guess, professionals. And so people have been, recognized us in a way as enablers. And when we proposed this to different public entities and also private entities to kind of make changes, I think they were very receptive. And that's something very interesting, especially during the pandemic, which was a lot of uncertainty. There was like a lot of fear too, and people were kind of focusing only on the COVID aspect. And so to us, that was something that we're super grateful for, because the ecosystem was very receptive to listen to the proposal, and also kind of creating and helping boost the law from the different areas of, the public entities we work with. So yeah, this is something that we're super proud of making happen, even if it took us almost a year and a half. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was also during the pandemic, so everyone's timelines got a little shook up. So, you guys have some success, and that's good. And that gives you momentum. And it sounds like you have a lot of momentum now with what you're releasing. Sounds like next month, right? So, for those that are following along, that the solution that you guys are going to have here next month go live. Let's dive into that a little bit.
Yes. So, I mean, I'll start with like framing the problem. So nature-based solutions are all kind of like, for carbon outcomes, right, are all solutions that are living ecosystems. that are of course nature-based and that can remove carbon from the atmosphere via removal, or in this case, removal. But the other way to remove carbon from the atmosphere is through reduction of emissions, which is not really happening unless you replace with sustainable energy sources like solar, right? But in particular, about 30% of all emissions in the world can be absorbed or removed by nature. But in the ecosystems in which we're at, so I'm here in Brazil, and Brazil has the most biodiverse ecosystems in the whole world. It has a big chunk of the Amazon, so the lungs of the planet, so literally a forest that is absorbing and removing a lot of carbon by just existing. But at the same time, we have reached all-time high deforestation rates in the past years. And there's no full participation in this is like, just to give that context, right? This is like almost 20 years ago when the UN and different entities come together and decide to kind of create a system where, carbon tons that are emitted into the ocean or into the atmosphere are going to be tracked and hopefully reduced, because we have reached certain levels of global warming, and this has consequences that we are starting to see, right? Like this is like a lot of like 20 years ago. And so they initially launched this strategy where you have a limit per year of carbon emissions. And if you go over, you have to pay either an offset, so kind of an extra or an allowance to pollute, or if you have an excess, you can sell that to other countries that need that excess to kind of not go over or pay less of a fee, right? And so this is kind of the principle that is behind carbon markets. So if you're a nation where you are with ecosystems that are absorbing carbon, you can turn those into offsets, into these kind of financial instruments, to put it that way, and trade them so that you can create resources or money from protecting the ecosystems and then channel that to your own ecosystem or research or labs or whatever you want to do with that. And then the organizations or nations that go over have to pay for that pollution. And there are two markets. So the cap and trade, the one that's in Europe, which is regulated, where there's an annual reduction between 2 and 3% of carbon per year. So this makes and forces people in the region and nations and companies to find other ways to kind of make up for the energy that they need to create. So for instance, with adoption of new technologies. But in the Americas in particular, and the rest of the world that's not Europe, the other market that exists, which is also a carbon market, is called the voluntary carbon market. And this is not regulated. It's very small. So if you compare, for instance, this is a $300 million market that is set to grow to 100 billion in the next years. But in Europe right now, this same market, the cap and trade, is almost $700 billion. So it's like, 50 times bigger, and it's set to grow to trillions of dollars, right? So there are differences, and in particular in the Americas, having the best nature and, ecosystems that are by just default prone to being able to create this types of offsets. To us as a team, realizing that there's no infrastructure, that people are not benefiting from these markets, that the ton of carbon here is sold at like $5 or $7 maybe, whereas in the US you can find that same ton at $30, or in Europe at $90. To us, that didn't make sense. And so we started to dig into this because when you realize the ecosystem is destroying its own natural resources, because a lot of times they don't necessarily understand carbon markets, or they don't see other options for being and having a sustainable kind of life, but getting into businesses that require them to destroy nature. And so we want to first bring awareness about carbon markets and then enable carbon markets. And our main solution that we're kind of releasing next month is a carbon removing marketplace leveraging the blockchain to make the the voluntary carbon markets more transparent, more efficient, also digital. And we have a suite of products, and our goal is to become a premier, environmental company that enables nature-based solutions to be digital. But for now, we're launching this carbon removing marketplace, and kind of making that layer the way for people to go on chain and also get into the carbon market. And that's where we see the biggest bottleneck right now. And we're also launching in parallel wallet, but it goes with the marketplace where you can see and keep track of your investments and your carbon offset. So that's something that also comes as part of the carbon removing marketplace, and it's available in versions iOS and Android. So this is what's coming out next month.
Wow, that really is impressive. These markets, like you said, they already exist in some capacity in these different countries, but the fact that it doesn't seem like they're very interoperable or connected, or it doesn't seem very fluid. And you guys seem to be providing that solution for, giving access to everyone that wants to participate in these markets. And it sounds as though you have a very easy solution. In terms of the people that might be using this, is for someone on the outside that isn't super familiar with the carbon offset, is it primarily like large businesses, or is it small businesses too, or just the consumer as
Yeah.
well?
So for now, we want to focus on supply and demand. So, and this is where we see the biggest strength in our team and our ecosystem. So Brazil and Colombia, because of the amount of hectares they have for reforestable land, they are literally the Saudi Arabias of the carbon economy if they reach their full potential. And that's what we want to enable. And I'm talking about trillions of dollars of carbon offsets that can be created with this system. Now, what happens is that, like you were saying, the kind of like carbon markets, in the voluntary carbon markets, there's a lot of bureaucracy, and a lot of the accreditation system is very opaque, closed door, super inefficient. And so what we're doing is, with this marketplace, focusing on the supply side, and we already have over 11 million hectares of forestable land ready to be brought on chain. So this represents lots of resources. Just to give you an idea, 25,000 hectares of Amazon land can generate about 10 million carbon tons being removed per year. And if you sell that carbon ton at, US price, I don't know, $15 per ton, this is almost $150 million at US price. But you can also sell these in Europe for companies buying or people buying, these offsets as either hedging strategies, and we're seeing investors starting to invest in carbon as liquid assets, or the other big client is the corporations who have committed to net zero goals. And so these tend to be bigger corporations, and that's kind of our demand side and the clients we kind of are aligning with. And right now we want to double down in the US because the US has leading tech companies, it's creating, regardless of whether it's Web 2 or Web 3, companies that have become the kind of examples for the world and innovation and kind of pushing things forward. And in particular, we think that there's a lot to be done around climate at the intersection of technology, but we're seeing some companies in the past year or year and a half committing, especially tech companies, committing to net zero goals. So Stripe just launched $1 billion kind of pledge to invest in carbon focused solutions, nature-based solutions being one of them, and Microsoft too, and also Salesforce is investing in this, and other companies. And so we want to double down on reaching out to those companies that we haven't talked with, because we're in a pipeline of some of them, but also having teammates on site in California and also in the East Coast, kind of reaching out to these companies from on site. Well, we focus also on the supply side. So yeah, that's kind of how we are organizing.
Yeah, yeah, I really see that the demand for that just going up and up and up. A lot more companies
Yeah.
are realizing that they have to be much more sustainable and to try and tackle that own. I think they view themselves as they're actors that might be part of the problem, and so they're trying to. Some of them are trying to be actors that are part of the solution now, and so I think you'll see,
Yeah.
hopefully, see a lot more people in the future wanting to work with you guys to and the fact that the solution that you're providing is very transparent, and it seems like it's a very easy solution for people to onboard and use. And I think that's one of the things too is people want to know. I think a lot of people want to know like the whole process of it before they dive in, and so the easier that is for
Yeah.
the companies, it has to be a good push to get them going in the right direction.
Yes, and I think this is one of the challenges because we want to focus on high quality accreditation or high quality carbon offsets, right? Whether these are verified or not by third parties, traditional accreditation systems. And this is where technology plays a huge role. So, in regards to the question of how it works, this is a challenge because these are new markets and we're bringing on top of carbon markets Web3. So a lot of people have to kind of be very open-minded, but to us, it's the best way to do it. And also, there's a lot of open satellite data that we're accessing, very high quality satellite data that enables us to calculate with machine learning models that we built with our data scientists, how much biomass potential there is depending on the area we're looking into. And based on that, estimate in lesser time how many offsets a particular geographic area can create versus older ways where it's been done manually and it takes 4 or 5 months. We can do that in a matter of weeks without compromising quality or results and actually using satellite data and machine learning models that are very sophisticated. So this is something that technology is enabling. And I think that this very bureaucratic and traditional carbon market kind of like system is going to change considerably in the next year and year and a half because of many companies starting to innovate and understand that there's a lot to be done in that area. So easy, but definitely like tech based. So I wanted to answer that. Yeah.
That's yeah, yeah. It seems very, very useful here in the near future. And then a little bit of curiosity too. How did you guys end up finding out about stacks? It sounds like it maybe personally for you it was fine like Patrick and what he was doing with city coins. And
Yeah.
kind of what led you to turn the switch to want to build on stacks.
Yeah, so I first learned about city coins, and to me that just made a lot of sense. And I was like, oh my god, this is the future, already the present, because I saw Miami was launching, and I got an email. I don't know why, maybe I signed up, but I don't remember when I signed up. And when I got the email, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I started to do research, and then I saw there was the roadmap for New York and other cities. And to me, it just made a lot of sense, especially because I think that in certain ecosystems, you see how, a lot of social kind of organizations or perhaps, how society organizes like the whole system affects more certain people than other. And you see the inequalities in regions like Latin America way more maybe because a lot of many reasons. But so when you bring technology to civic engagement and you have politicians who are very open to implement crypto as a new system that is not just more transparent, but also more secure and inclusive, I think that's just like something that I just had to kind of admire. And I reached out and then I learned about the Accelerator program, and that's when I applied. But the mission, the vision resonated a lot with me. And in particular, we realized that we could not just enable, through our perspective, implementing city coins in regions like Latin America, and of course through our network and all the kind of like effects that we can create with via our networks and our work, but also in particular align the vision of climate and sustainability into city coins by enabling either, for instance, a wallet that also accumulates climate portfolios, not just, city coins or perhaps Bitcoin or stacks, but, climate portfolios that can be made of renewable energy or carbon offsets or other types of offsets like blue ocean or blue carbon or, soul carbon. And so that's when we pitch the teammates at Stacks, and the vision we have is to eventually integrate and get that full integration. But we're starting with the supply because we think this is the biggest bottleneck right now, and we have a very strong position to provide, millions of carbon tons being removed from the atmosphere by protecting our natural ecosystems first. But this is how we saw the integration. And also, I think Bitcoin, it totally transformed the world. And I think a lot of people still don't understand it because there's still like mass adoption to reach, but it's slowly getting there. Bitcoin is just like the pioneering system that has created this new revolution and has enabled a lot of wealth and new ways to transact data and also capital resources and innovation. And so by being the most decentralized, the most secure, the most valuable, I think there's a huge value to that. And also the most kind of accepted globally, with a lot of people trusting and understanding the value of Bitcoin as a storage of, wealth or value. And Stacks, that L2 that enables different functionalities to come in, I think unlocking Bitcoin beyond what it already is, which is like the most value crypto, I think is just super powerful. And we want to enable that and continue growing the ecosystem, in particular with this sustainability focus, but also thinking about also bringing more people from our regions into Bitcoin, into Stacks and these city coins models as well, and sustainability with ePioneers. So that's also why we're part of the program and join the community.
Yeah, that's really awesome to hear. And it sounds like from your experience, you've probably you worked in kind of the traditional finance world for some time, and so it's probably fairly easy for all of this to resonate and for you to kind of internalize it, to understand it. So yeah, one thing too, I did remember you said earlier that you guys initially started building on Algorand too. So here at Stacks we understand that the future is going to be multi-chain. It's not just going to end up on one blockchain, right? But that's really neat as well. That's nice to hear that you guys are branching out, and that means more and more people will get exposure to what you all are building and what the solution. I really think the solution that you guys are providing is going to be really well received, and a lot of people are going to use it. So happy that it's the barrier to entry to use it's very low. So
thanks. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, I think there's a lot of work, and it's exciting. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and was going to ask, speaking of a lot of work, in the Accelerator, how has that been so far for you guys? Is this kind of like the first time you've done something like this, or is this are you a veteran of accelerators?
No, this is like one of the best accelerators I've got into. And I've been into a few, but more around impact, and it's been super intense. Like, I feel like I've learned a ton, and especially at the intersection of cutting edge innovation. So directly from the city coins team, for instance, and across different verticals. So legal, technical, even like, communication or design or tokenomics. And so I think super robust. It's very intense. So it's been like a process, but I like when things are challenging and intense. I think, all the team is benefiting a lot. So we have, the Notion access, and we rewatch certain videos, and we have them as top references. So I think super high quality, and the quality of the people are just great too. Like, these are people who are building the future and are creators and are doers. So having the chance to learn from them and know that these are super busy people that are, highly demanded for consulting or for their own creation, and having that privilege to interact directly with this community, I think that's super valuable, and that's something that is like super top notch from the program. Besides the content, so I think that it's been great, and it's been very intense. And I think that whoever wants to join needs to know that this is going to be challenging and intense, but it's going to kind of change the whole perspective and bring you lots of value. So if you're interested, you definitely need to apply. But it's intense. So yeah.
Yeah. I also always like to ask people too. Have you? I know you guys are very busy. Have you gotten a chance to interact with any of the other teams, form any kind of friendships or partnerships, or learn from each other?
Yes, no, definitely. I've reached out to a few founders from my cohort and also from previous cohorts, because we also have mentorships from the first cohort, we're cohort number 2, and also people in the Stacks community from teams that are not necessarily founders, but are also part of their teams. So, the Citycoins team, also the founders from Friends, NeoSwap, also Andrew from, I forgot the name of his startup, Zez, I think it's the name. Who else? I mean, that we have like regular, almost like bi-weekly or conversations. And then every day we are meeting, we're having sessions, so we're always connected, every day literally. We'll definitely reach out, and also to the network of professionals that the Stacks team has enabled us to access. So from legal to investors to other founders beyond, the program, to like operators. So I'm almost always like meeting new people and connecting. So I think that's super valuable too on Discord too. So
Yeah. And it's really, it's nice to hear, because there's a lot there, like a lot of the people I've found in this space, is there's a lot of like win and help win, that mentality. And it's
yeah,
something that you don't see elsewhere very often, but it's very warm and it's very helpful. And with that,
yeah,
it does make I feel like that you said it's time consuming. It's there's really a lot of difficulty with it, but I think it makes it a little easier, right? With kind of going through it with people like that. But yeah, to
yeah.
kind of wrap it up a little bit here, for folks that are listening in that want to learn more about you guys, or people that might have a company that would like to use this here in the near future, where should they go to learn more, to use the ePioneer products?
Yeah, so we're launching in the middle of June, so during demo day. And right now our website is, for that landing page, pre-launch announcement. But we're also on Twitter, so posting almost daily, and also have an Instagram account, ePioneers. On Twitter, it's ePioneer Go. And we're also posting every month almost our roadmap and updates on our blog. It's ePioneer.io, and then you have access to the blog. So these are the ways for us to communicate. And you can also reach out directly to me or my co-founder. It's im@epioneer.io, and then my co-founder is Steven@epioneer.io.
All right. So hopefully everybody had their pen and paper down there, because I think you guys are going to be making some very big waves. So anyone that wants to get involved,
Thank you.
or be a part of this, I'm very, very hopeful that I think you guys are going to try and help provide some good to the world. And so it's always nice to chat with people that are trying to do something that's beneficial for the climate, in which we all benefit from, right? So
Yeah, and this is like for the long term. Like, we're here for the long haul, and I think there's also a lot of value to unlock in terms of resources. So it's not just about impact, but also making Bitcoin even more valuable, stacks more valuable, and also, of course, like the carbon market infrastructure here in all the Americas, the biggest market for carbon offsets, which we think should be, because the nature is unmatched. So we're going for that. So yeah.